is WGAO Franklin, Massachusetts. Power 88. Southeastern New England's hottest rock. All day long.
Good morning. You are listening to the Alex Feuz Show, bringing you all of the news, sports debates, interviews with people you all care about, and so much more. Every single weekday on Teen College Power 88 Radio, broadcasting live from 7 to 8 a.m. And now, here's your host, Alex Feuz.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm Alex Feuz, along with Chaz Soba in the studio this morning, bringing you up until the 8 o'clock hour this morning, another edition of the Alex Feuz Show, and we have another big show for you right now. We're about to break down the World Series Game 2 last night, another disappointing loss for the Houston Astros, and a surprising loss, that is. Again, the Nationals were able to pick up another win and now lead the Astros 2-0 in the series. Also, top 5 news headlines of the day. Also, surprising news about gas prices we'll be talking about in the top 5 news headlines of the day. At 7:30, we will be going to the phone lines with Ariel Helwani, who is the ESPN MMA reporter. We'll be talking about the WWE and his career, and also we'll also be, once again, recapping the World Series Games 2. But before we do that, sending it over to Chaz Soba in the news studio with the weather update. Chaz, how's it looking out there?
Well, today's weather will be clear throughout the day with a high of 64 by 2 in the afternoon. The low will be around 50 degrees by midnight tonight, and it is currently 38. Forecast shows almost no clouds for today, so don't forget your sunglasses. This has been your weather update. Now let's head over to our next segment, a rundown of last night's World Series game.
Well, Chaz, I know we were watching some highlights this morning. I watched most of the game last night, but what a surprising turn of events. Justin Verlander seemed like he did his job, holding him in, and then he let up the home run in the 7th inning that gave what should have been a 3-3 game because Jose Altuve got picked off at first base in the bottom of the first, and then Alex Bregman ended up hitting a 2-run home run to tie up the game at 2 apiece. But Jose Altuve got picked off, so now it was just a 2-run home run by Bregman, not a 3-run home run. But now the Astros 0-2 against the Nationals. Game 3 is tomorrow night. How surprised are you with what the Nationals have been able to do so far against the Astros?
Considering the pitching they've been facing, I'm very surprised. I mean, we know the Nationals has a pretty decent offense, but I mean, you're going up against Garrett Cole, who's been absolutely red hot since way back in May. Hasn't given up more than 5 runs in a start since, I think it was May 11th sometime. Hasn't lost since then either. And they went up against Justin Verlander last night, who has also been the epitome of consistency and domination throughout his starts this season. And for them to kind of take both of them and get early leads and kind of keep you throughout the game, that was really surprising to me.
Now, there is a lot of baseball left in a way. It's not red flags for the Astros just yet. Yes, I have the Nationals in 6 games winning the World Series, but still, the Astros are still a credible threat. You know, the Astros, this is not a fluke season. I would say it's almost a fluke season for the Nationals. They're proving everyone wrong with that right now. But at the end of the day, these two teams, if you were to put them on paper, obviously the Astros have the shot to win the World Series. They lost the first game against the Yankees. They were able to pick up game 2. And then they were able to win 2 in New York. They lost 1. The Astros actually don't play awful on the road. They did play awful on the road in Tampa. Do you think if you're an Astros fan right now, you're a little worried about going into Washington for 3 games? Because now you have to win 2 games in Washington to just live on. Because if you lose 1 game or 2 games, you're done.
Yeah, if I'm an Astros fan, I'm getting a little bit nervous right now. Obviously, you want to have faith in your team. You want to believe they can go on the road just like the Nationals did, and they can pick up a couple wins. But it's definitely not a good thing as an Astros fan to know that you're down 2-0 in the series and you're leaving home. They took 2 in their own home ballpark, and now they're leaving. They're going on the road. They're going to have to face the opposing crowd. Houston's not behind them in spirit maybe, but in the actual ballpark, it's going to be Nationals fans there.
And again, this is the first championship game that the city of Washington, D.C. has had in over 80 years. And you better believe that those fans are going to show up.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to be ready for this one. They've been waiting a long time.
You know, it almost feels like we're back in 2016 when the Chicago Cubs were back in the World Series and then they ended up winning it. You know, it seems like in the last 10 years, Chaz, that we have these teams that haven't really had a lot of success, whether or not in a regular season or in the playoffs or what it may be. But, you know, these teams that have really had no success in the last many years are now finally winning championships. We saw it with the Chicago Cubs, the Kansas City Royals, and now the Nationals. Again, that's just baseball. We can go through and through. I mean, we could look back at the St. Louis Blues from this past NHL Stanley Cup Finals, them winning that championship. I mean, we can go on and on and on about all these teams that are now back in the win column, in the championship column. And that's what we're seeing here, and potentially seeing another championship in the city of Washington, D.C. coming up very soon.
They'd definitely like to see that. You know, they've been, like you said, they've been waiting a really long time for it. And this is probably the year if they're going to win it. You know, like you said, you don't want to call it a fluke season exactly for the Nationals because they definitely have talent. They definitely have depth on their team. But, I mean, they've been underdogs for a while for the whole season. So for them to make it this far and especially take the 2-0 lead in the World Series, this is definitely going to be their year if they're going to want to win this chip.
Jose Altuve, who has really been the face of the franchise through and through for the Astros since he made his debut. And he's a guy that is almost an underdog within himself. He is an underdog within himself. And a lot of people say he could be overrated. But I'm like, no, absolutely not. I mean, he is a star. You know, and he is the face of the franchise for the Astros. How do you think he's feeling today?
I mean, in my opinion, Jose Altuve has always been a bulldog kind of guy. You know, he's, 5'6"?
Yeah.
He's literal underdog. He, I don't know if you ever saw the story. He went to a tryout when he was like 16 for the Astros. Mm-hmm. They didn't even let him try out. They didn't think he was 16. Came back with a birth certificate, said, "You need to let me try out." You know how the story goes. But I see him as the kind of guy that's always in the fight until the fight's literally over. And if he's down 2 games now, he's still thinking they've got 3 games to win away in the row before they go back to Houston, and he's going to want to win at least 2 out of 3 of those. He's the kind of guy that's going to fight until the end, and he's going to get his team to rally behind him. He's going to be a leader on that team and try to motivate some of the younger guys to follow in his lead.
Another guy that is trying to do that is also Alex Bregman. He had a big 2-run home run last night, but it just wasn't enough, you know, and that's what happened last night. And that's the thing about baseball. I know we talked about it 2 days ago when we had the same conversation where you could have the worst team going up against the best team, and then the worst team wins. You know, you can't predict baseball. You can't, you know, something can go so right one night and then something can go so wrong the next, and you just can't predict it. And the Astros, this is not the situation that they wanted to be in, going into Game 3 down 2 games and winless in Houston the first 2. But at the end of the day, now you have 3 games in Washington. You have to pick up 2 games, and then you're back at home. Then if you look at the record of the Astros when it goes back to Houston in the last, 5 years, geez, it's pretty good. So if there's some way that the Astros can pick up 2 wins in Washington and get it back to Houston, things are going to start shifting the Astros' way. I think we're going to see a Game 6 or a Game 7 in this series. These 2 teams are just too talented and just 2 powerhouse teams that I can't see the Nationals just sweeping them.
No, I definitely can't see that either. I mean, like you said, the Astros are definitely way too strong of a team, depth-wise, to just be swept by the Nationals like that in the World Series. Going back to if you're an Astros fan, if we go on the road and you pick up 2 or 3 and you send it back to Houston, as an Astros fan, I'm confident in that. Because you pick up some momentum on the road, just like the Nats did, except you take away some of their momentum because they're thinking about taking some games maybe winning in the Nationals ballpark. Bring a championship back there. But if they manage to bring it back to Houston, I'm pretty confident if I'm an Astros fan.
Yeah, let's talk about last night's game just a little bit more in detail. It seemed like the bullpen exploded. Again, Justin Verlander gave up a home run, and now it's a 3-2 game. And then after that, the Nationals offense was off to the races.
Yeah.
The Astros bullpen just couldn't stop the bleeding. And things started it was one ugly inning, 6 runs in the 7th inning, and then more in the 8th and the 9th, and just they couldn't stop the bleeding. The Astros bullpen is not the strongest, but it's not that bad. What do you think went wrong?
I mean, like you said, Verlander, he kept his own. He he held them to 3 runs through 6 1/3. Not a bad performance, but after that home run in the top of the 7th, I almost feel like that opened up the floodgates. The Nationals felt good. They took the lead. They had no outs. They had the bullpen coming in. They had some guys that weren't Justin Verlander, obviously, coming in, and they wanted to just kind of chip off on him. That's what they did. They put up some real big numbers. They had, I think it was an error by Bregman in that inning that allowed a run to score with 2 outs. And then we had a Asdrubal Cabrera hit a RBI single for 2 runs, who's been pretty cold so far in the postseason. So that was big for him. And as the game just went on, as that inning went on, they just kept moving the chains, keeping it going.
Asdrubal Cabrera was a guy that all I can think about was when he was on the Cleveland Indians, and then he went to the Mets, and then he was a part of that team for a while, and then I believe he went to the Tampa Bay Rays for a little bit too, and now he's with the Nationals, where he's kind of been that guy that's, I would say, has flown under the radar. And I had him up in fantasy baseball 2 years ago, and he's a pretty decent ball player, and he's a guy that's just he's an underdog in a way, and he doesn't get a lot of talk about, but he's pretty good. He's getting up there in age. I think he's around 36 or 37 in age, but he's just one of those guys that can just get it done. He's reliable defensively and offensively. Sometimes he gets into the funks, but he comes up clutch with big hits, and that's what he did last night. Last night was a huge hit for him, and just to continue passing off the baton to the Nationals offense, and then they did that. Never took their foot off the gas pedal and just kept the offense moving along, and then just kind of just killed the Astros.
Not to mention that there's Sean Doolittle in the Nationals bullpen, who's been all right this year, but he came in with 2 outs in the 8th, and he shut him down. He got a huge save there, and he kind of kept the bleeding minimal because I believe they put up 1 in the 8th, and he came in. He was that guy for the Nationals. A lot of Nationals fans were kind of a little shaky about him probably coming in with 2 outs. There were runners on. They didn't want to let the Astros start to try and get back into this game, but he did a really good job for them, and I think the Nationals fans are grateful for that.
Chaz, I know you said 2 days ago that you believe the Astros are going to win the World Series. Do you still think that's true?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know what to think at this point. Like you said, baseball is a very unpredictable game, and it would look right now that the Nationals have the upper hand, but you can never count either team out at any point in the games. Until the series is completely over, you can't count either team out, especially the Astros. Their track record through the past couple of years. But as of right now, I'd probably give the upper hand to the Nationals just because they're going back home with 2 wins, with the momentum, with the home field advantage.
And that's the thing. That's the key part. They have 3 games in Washington, and we're seeing this right now. And yes, you can't predict baseball, and you can predict matchups and stuff like that, but it's tough. Zach Greinke on the mound for the Astros in Game 3. He's a good hitter, too. So I feel like the Astros do have the advantage in Game 3, and that's a must-win game. Because you can't be 3-0 in the World Series and try to win, especially with 2 games left in Washington. And then you have to win 2 games at home. That's not more of a. I mean, yes, the Astros just lost 2 games at home, but if it's Game 6 and Game 7, we saw it with the Yankees in the last series. Home field advantage to the Astros is the cakewalk. We didn't see it this series, but it's still there.
the stats are all there for the home field advantage for the Astros. I mean, like you said, they've been sensational home all year long. Unfortunately, they didn't get the break they wanted, I guess, in the World Series. They had two pitchers who they can rely on all year. Both of them kind of put up mediocre performances, and that's what you can't do in the World Series. You need your aces to be your aces. You need Garrett Cole to be that guy that he's been for you all season long, and you need Verlander to do the same thing. And although Verlander didn't do terrible, you want, in the World Series, you want him to give up 1 run max. You don't want him giving up 3 runs. You don't want him giving up hits, home runs, stuff like that. So for the Nationals to win those two, it's definitely pretty big for them.
Coming up next, top 5 news headlines of the day. Why are gas prices in the news? Tune in next on Power 88.
Why is Connor...
Welcome back to Power 88 Radio. Alex Feuz and Chaz Soba bringing you up until the 8 o'clock hour this morning. Top 5 news headlines of the day. Headline number 5, Chaz. Josh Gordon's season is over, but they say only in New England. He was placed on the IR yesterday with an injury again, but he said that he's on his way to coming back, and they're actually talking about potentially that he has a shot to go to Miami Dolphins.
That would be interesting to see, definitely. But yeah, they just placed him on the IR yesterday. He has I think something with his knee going wrong. Nothing serious, it looks like, but yeah, I'm seeing a lot of things that the Patriots intend to part ways with him, release him once he's healthy once again, which is seems almost Patriots-esque to pick up a big name wide receiver like that, release him after a pretty short amount of time. Seems like we've seen this one before, haven't we?
Oh yes, I know. I think I know what you're talking about, and even though his name is kind of like going out of the news, but I think I know exactly who you're talking about. But Tom Pelezro from NFL.com, I believe he's the Dolphins reporter, tweeted, all players go through waivers when released starting next Wednesday, the day after the trading deadline. So even though Josh Gordon is a vested veteran, he'd go on waivers if the Patriots cut him off the IR. After that meeting, the likes of the Dolphins would have the first crack. So again, they do have a shot to do it. Do you think they would do that or no?
Personally, I don't know if they will or won't, but as a Dolphins fan, I don't want him on the team. I think he's a headache. I think he has undeniable talent for sure, but we don't really have enough of a team to build around him yet. You know, we're not a playoff contender that needs a big wide receiver. You know, we're a bottom tier team that's at the start of a rebuild right now. We're gonna want to get a lot of young guys on our team next year in the draft and the year after. We're gonna want to start making some trades for some veterans for developing some of the rookies that we're gonna get. But I think Josh Gordon just can't really be that guy for the Dolphins right now. He's not in a stable enough place in his life that that he could provide sort of veteran presence in the wide receiver core for the Dolphins.
Headline number 4. Listen to this one. Man drives unsupervised to own driving test, then fails it and is arrested.
That's a headline for sure.
It said a motorist has been arrested after traveling unsupervised to his own driving test in a stolen car. And then it said the man failed his test for the 10th time. And then West Midlands Police posted a picture of the vehicle that had been turned up into the officers after the arrest, and then also, again, failed his test 10 times.
That is almost impressive in its own. To fail your driver's test 10 times. You fail it a 9th time, you say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to steal a car so I can get to my driver's test. And then you fail it again. That is just something else. There's some weird people in this world.
Yes, there are, and that's one of them. And 10 times you can't pass a driving test, and it's pretty easy. It's kind of scary how easy a driving test is if you practice. You know, I passed on my first time.
Yeah, I've had a lot of friends that I know that passed on the first time that I've personally been in the car with that probably shouldn't have passed their driver's test. So I'd have to imagine he's definitely not a safe driver if he's failing his driver's test 10 times.
Headline number 3, Massachusetts gas prices are down 1 cent.
Wow.
They're down 1 cent. Yes, so the average price for a gallon of regular unleaded gas prices in Massachusetts is down 1 cent this week, according to AAA Northeast. AAA Northeast weekly survey of prices in Massachusetts found that self-serve regular unleaded average about $2.49 per gallon. The price is 15 cents below the national average of $2.64.
I guess it's a good time to be a car owner in Massachusetts.
First, you have to pass your driving test, though.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that guy's going to be purchasing any gas anytime soon.
Maybe for a stolen car.
Maybe.
But they say a year ago, at this time, the average price in Massachusetts was 31 cents higher, at $2.80 per gallon.
Now, that's a success story.
So gas prices are just decreasing by the cent, and so that's good news for Massachusetts drivers.
Definitely is.
Headline number 2. I don't know, Chad. Are you a fan of the show The Office?
I'm a huge fan of The Office.
So-
Watched the whole series 4 times through.
Okay, so you're one of those. I mean, I'm the same way. I love The Office. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but Jenna Fisher and Angela Kingsley are launching an Office podcast. They call it Office Chicks, I believe it's called, or Office Ladies. Office Ladies. And this is a podcast. I started listening to it yesterday. They are rewatching every single episode and talking about it and talking about different cool facts from the different shows. They did the pilot and diversity day so far. And then the 3rd episode is coming out next week. And Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight Schrute on the show, is co-hosting with them. And they say they are going to do this for every single Office episode.
That is definitely something I'm going to want to tune into. I mean, you got Pam and Angela from the show, who sort of had an interesting relationship throughout the series.
Yep.
Best friends in real life, as a lot of Office fans know.
Sure.
Starting this podcast together, they're going to rewatch the entire series.
Yes.
That's going to be a lot of material that they're going to go through. And for them to kind of dive into each episode and say behind the scenes stuff and how scenes are made and maybe if certain lines were improv or something like that, I think it's going to be really really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
And the 2 podcasts they have so far created are, I would say, an average of 50 to 55 minutes long. So these are long podcasts just talking about one episode. And you really get to just learn about the show and how they're created. A lot of the actors on the show that I realized were actually writers on the show. So BJ Novak, who played Ryan, he was the head writer on the show, one of them on the show. He wrote Diversity Day.
That's a feat in itself, because Diversity Day is anyone that's watched The Office. That's an episode right there.
Oh, yeah. And he wrote it at the age of 25 years old.
Really?
He was 25 years old when he wrote that show.
Didn't know that.
Yep. And, a lot of the, and they were talking about how Phyllis was actually never even supposed to be on this show. And her job was to practice the roles during tryouts. When you're trying to get a part on the show, she's the person that's reading back the lines with you. And then they said that she did a good job and they gave her a part on the show.
And now she's the mom of the show. Everyone loves her.
Yes, everyone loves Phyllis. Even Michael.
Yeah, how could you not?
But so I thought that was awesome, and it's a great listen. And I have to finish the 2nd episode. They're so entertaining. They're fun to listen to, and they make it a lot of fun. Headline number 1. Again, I always like to end the segment on what national day it is, and today is National Food Day. It's yes, it's so simple, but National Food Day focus is on something a little different about food. It's the healthy and nutritious food. So one of the themes of the day aims to help people eat real. This theme is defined by cutting back on sugar drinks, overly salted packaged food, fatty food, factory farm meats in favor of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and protein as well. So again, this holiday is kind of made for the food activists of the world to eat healthier.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna need to take part in that. I like my junk food, my goldfish, my sodas, sweets. Maybe today's the day I'm gonna cut back on a couple of those. maybe eat a couple fruits.
Yeah, I mean, the dining hall here does have some fruit. Sometimes it's okay, but most of the time it's really good. So maybe I'll have some fruit for breakfast today.
Yeah, I think I might join you in that.
Sounds good. Well, coming up next, we are on the phone line with Ariel Hawani, who is an MMA writer and for ESPN. So we'll be talking on the phone line with him next here on Power 88. Welcome back to Power 88 Radio. Alex Feuz and Chaz We're bringing you up until the 8 o'clock hour this morning. We're going to be previewing Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow night between the Astros and the Nationals. Zach Greinke on the mound for Houston. And Zach Greinke can hit the ball. And I mean, he did so when he was with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then before that as well. This is a guy that, pitchers in the National League, right? This is where sometimes they have the advantage or disadvantage. Sometimes you guys got like a matchup between Kershaw and Bumgarner, and Bumgarner might take you deep if you're on the mound. And pitchers in this day, and look, it's a conversation for another day. Maybe we can talk about this next week, you and I, about designated hitters in the National League. I'm for it. I know the traditional baseball fan, and I'm a traditional baseball fan, I would say that, but it's grown on me. It really has. I feel like we need a DH in the National League, especially with this day and age where they care more about, I wouldn't say that. I would say the marketing department cares more about the non-baseball fan than the baseball fan. We saw it with the juice balls all regular season.
Yeah, as far as DH in the National League, a lot of National League fans, or like fans of National League teams, they hate the DH. I got a lot of fans that when David Ortiz was playing, they hated him. They're like the DH is an outdated position. They don't need it. They should have hitters pitch. They should have pitchers hit, rather. Honestly, I like the DH position. It's a fun position to play, definitely. But more than that, it gives pitchers a reason to not to play the game, obviously, because they want to pitch. But it's almost like they want to help themselves, If they're having a good performance and their team isn't really performing, it gives them a chance to step up and get some runs for themselves. They can get a clutch hit or a walk or somewhere around there, as opposed to like an AL pitcher who they could pitch a great game, but if their offense isn't backing it up, and it really doesn't matter.
Okay, Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow night between the Astros and the Nationals. Chaz, who do you have winning the game?
Well, if you really dive into the pitching matchup, it's Anibal Sanchez and Zach Greinke, Anibal Sanchez in the regular season was decent. He had I think like a 3.9 ERA, picked up like 11 wins for them. But what you know about Anibal Sanchez is his postseason ERA is sitting at 2.57 right now. He's been a really, really consistent postseason pitcher. Back in like 2012, 2013 when he was with Detroit, he pitched really well for them. And even in the postseason so far, he's been really consistent. So he's going to be a real good pitcher to see. And then, of course, for the Astros, you have Zach Greinke, who's just coming off a really almost career year, put up 18 wins for the Astros, sub-3 ERA. I'd like to think it'd be another pitcher's duel, just like it's been the first two, but you never know what's going to happen with either offense.
Well, Chaz, thank you for joining me for the show today. Big show tomorrow. Bill Brown, former voice of the Houston Astros for over 30 years, joining the show to talk about Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. So once again, thank you for listening to the show today. For Chaz Soba, I'm Alex Feuz. Have a great rest of the day and be kind to one another.